Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and work some more on the superstructure to the USS Missouri. This time I start to move forward right under the area underneath the bridge. I think it's level 2 up above the main, no, level 3 up above the main deck. I'm going to go over again the installation of the wood deck, kind of like last time, because I don't think there's really any more left to do on here. Go over that in detail. I know I sped through it earlier in the build with the main deck, so this time we go over it in a little bit more detail. Do some photo etch work, do some tidying up. Not really a whole lot super exciting going on. It's just kind of another section of the ship where you have to do a lot of work to make progress, and then when you're done, it just kind of is like, well, there's nothing really to look at. I do want to plug real quick here, this picture that shows up here in the background. This is a new piece that we got. My stepson got it for me for Christmas. I really appreciate it. But I wanted to let you guys know about it. It's called, it's from a gentleman who's actually a former Army veteran who now does some really great, really affordable artwork called Call for Fire. I'm going to put a link in the description down below to his site. But his name's Aaron, super cool dude, does some really nice pieces. At least go take a look at his site and check it out. Support our veterans in their post-service causes. So yeah, that's it. Let's jump into the video and hope you enjoy it. We'll see you guys in a bit. Back to, looks like, I think this is the forward part of the main superstructure, like the third level up, getting to the bridge. We're back to wanting to put the wood decking on, and so right away I cut the piece out and I set it up here like this, ready to go. But I noticed right here, as you can see, we're missing some deck material, which I had to go digging through the instructions, but discovered it's right here. Just pieces Hotel 20 and 19. So they're actually pretty neat because looks like it just drops in like this, and it's in, yeah, that's it, and then it catches on this edge right here. I think that's pretty interesting that they opted to go with having it overhang and be a piece like this. We got to fill all these sinkholes in and everything, but having it sit on the edge like this versus being a part that was just molded into place. But anyway, I'm gonna put some glue on this and get it painted, and then we'll do a detailed discussion once again on how to install the wood deck. So I prepped the edges, and then we got to fill in these sinkholes, and I just like to take my sanding stick, again the light blue side, and run it over each of these real quick just to make sure that there's no edge popping up. It takes care of a couple of the little grease marks that you see, and then we got to fill those super obnoxious little holes before we paint it. And I've shown this before, but and you can see I've used it. I like using this Bondo glazing and spot putty. This you buy at AutoZone or an auto parts store. This is not for models, it's for cars. It gets kind of dried up and gunky in there, but well, I've made a mess of this stuff, but I just squeeze a little bit out on my finger and smush it into place here. Some of this hard stuff is going to be set up a little bit, but just fill it in the hole real fast while I'm making a mess of this. Get some of the newer stuff out. It's super soft. It goes on really quick with your finger. Like that, and it'll clean up with enamel, and then I'll even take my hobby knife and just scrape. I mean, you want to minimize the cleanup work you're gonna have to do afterwards. The whole idea here is just to fill in the hole, and we're gonna sand this off, so you don't want to lose any details. So just take the knife and scrape off what you're not gonna use. And of course, we're doing this just because we know there's a sink mark there. When it's done, no one's going to see this. See how that's already dried up? It's already set up right there. And I clean up the mess I made. I made a real mess of this, but anyway, we'll just set that aside. I'll do the other one, and then we just sand it real quick. All right, so hopefully you can see in this shot that it's a much lighter color red now, and that basically means it's just set up. And just go make your pass here with your sanding stick and take off any of the high spots. A little blow, and that's it. It's ready to go, ready for paint. The only thing I don't like about this stuff is that it does end up red, and it kind of requires several coats of paint to make sure that you don't see through it versus the plastic. If you're not using a dark color, if you're using a light color. But on the positive side of things, this is Bondo. It is meant to be painted, so it does tank paint well, and it covers up just fine. So that's all I gotta do, and then we just gotta glue the part on. Alright, it's gonna be easier to paint them outside of the part that's already there and then glue them on. So we'll just take care of that now. See what I'm talking about? Just doing light coats over the back here. It takes the paint well, but it's gonna take a couple of coats to cover up all of the red. All right, so we know where the parts are gonna go. Like this one's gonna go right here like this. It's gonna drop into place. You don't have to do this. Well, this is debatable, but you really should remove the paint right along the area where you're gonna have the glue adhere. And I like using the knife because it gives you a little bit of control, but we need to lose basically 2/32 or 1 millimeter's worth of paint along this edge right here, and then up in this little spot, and you can just make that out, right? And the whole idea is, while the part's set up to dry, when we set it in here and I drop the glue in, the glue has a straight line between the styrene of both pieces, and it can melt it together. You can sometimes get away with going right over the glue or the paint, but I don't recommend it. Alright, I showed this before, but I'm a fan of the Tamiya extra thin cement. We'll be using it for this task. Go ahead, and obviously you want to test fit your part and make sure that it goes together the way that you want. And as you can see there, it dropped in nicely. Push it down a little bit more right there, but we got the deck we got to put in place, and there it fits in the bottom fine. And don't worry about the different colors, but you want to make sure it's sitting flush. So all we're going to do now, I'll separate it a little bit just to make it easy, but we're just going to drop our Tamiya right along that edge, and I got it flipped upside down here too, but I'm just gonna touch right in there and make sure that that's pushed down and that this edge right there is pushed in flush, and that's it. That's your piece. Just let it set up and you'll be set to go. This is what it looks like on the bottom. You could touch glue right along that edge right there too as well, but yeah, whatever. So anyway, we're gonna let this set up, and then we'll do the one over here on the right. So the last order of business before we go messing with the deck is we need to make sure that we paint this light blue deck area the same weather deck blue as the rest of the area here. Now, there's a reason I do this, and I'm not going to be able to demonstrate it very well here because There's still the backing piece on here, but this wood is so thin, this veneer is so transparent that if there's a dark color underneath and then a light color like that, when you press these down and you're done setting it up, there's a good chance you'll see it. There's a good chance you'll see this dark line and then onto that light line. Now, you could say, well, Ben, why'd you do that? Why'd you paint the whole deck this color? In the first place, especially if you're gonna stain it. The reason for that is this area right here is going to, this is like a metal plate, it's gonna stay this color. And then on the main deck, you have a lot of deck fittings that stick up that it's just easier to spray paint them ahead of time before you put the wood deck down. Well, when you do that, unless you're perfect, you're gonna end up with a little bit of overspray, which means when you put your deck down, you're gonna end up with shadows. This isn't as critical and important because we're gonna stain this deck, but if you're putting it down all natural, especially like I did on the Arizona, you totally need to take this extra step and prepare the deck to make sure that it's the same color as everything else around it. It makes sure that you're not going to have any issues. And I did an example somewhere else on the build or in a different piece where I thought, well, let me just try it without it. Let's not paint it. We'll just leave our piece. I'll throw it down. I'll see what happens. And you totally could see through the wood to the paint on the other side, which isn't good. I'm just using a brush. I'm not gonna airbrush this whole thing because it's not super critical. I want to get my edges to look pretty nice, but I just need to get the color underneath even is really the main point. And then we'll go ahead and get the wood on. Well, we'll get to the next step, which is where we're going to put the wood on. And that is going to be a little bit more involved. And we'll let that set up. So now it comes down to it. We got our deck ready to go, and we want to glue on our first piece of wood deck, just like we did in previous videos. So I use Gorilla Wood Glue. This is what was recommended by ScaleDecks.com for their products, which I wish I was using for the Missouri right now. And what you need then is a brush. This will clean up with water. And basically, the first thing we're going to do is take a good look at carefully where does the deck go exactly. And you can make some marks if you want with a pencil. Get some reference points, whatever it is you need to do to make sure that you know where the glue is going to be applied. I'm going to make a little line right here for the front just to stop it there. And what we're going to do is literally smudge on all the glue with a paintbrush and get ready to put our piece down. So I'll probably fast forward this, but just start by getting the glue down and onto your surface that you're gonna work. That's what I do. And then take the brush and just smudge it around. Now this glue does dry clear. It has a glossy finish to it when it's done, and that's fine. You can hit it with a clear coat. It dries extremely hard, so I wouldn't plan on being able to file it off or anything. But you're just gonna do like this. Like I said, there's these edges here that I know the deck's not gonna go over, so I'm gonna try to avoid applying it there. You're just getting it smoothed out, a nice even coat. Make sure you guys can kind of see what's going on here. Just like so. Alright, that'll work. Now, As I mentioned in previous videos, this gloss back that you see here is sticky, and basically there's a self-adhesive glue already put on the piece from Pontos. It is very sticky. Do not be fooled though. If you use this to stick your laminate down, it'll stick for a little while and then it's going to come back up. So as best as you can, put it down, grab some excess glue and wood glue, and I apply it right on here, right onto the wood, and we're just going to get a nice thin veneer finish worth on this whole piece, because this glue, once it sets up, is actually what is going to hold the whole deck down. Okay, now that the glue's applied, just do your very best and carefulest to get the deck drop down into place. You get a couple of opportunities to line everything up right, but once it's down, it's probably not going to move for you again. And all I do is put it down in place and then smush everything into position with whatever tool you feel comfortable with to make sure your edges get all the way down, like so. And then push it with your fingers, rub everything out, push this all down, get all the little bubbles out, get all the glue to spread out evenly and stick into position. You're just rubbing it into place literally with your fingers like this, and that should get all your edges down. If you get a little bit of excess glue like right in there, you might be able to see it early on. You can catch it with a knife and scrape it out of there if you want. This is all going to end up getting a whole bunch of paint put over the top of it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Squish it down though, get all that excess glue out into the edges. So see if you can see this right there. I got a whole bunch of glue to squish out along this edge. That's what you want to do, is get that taken care of and pushed out to the edge. Alright, once you're done, that's what it looks like. It looks nice. So now we got to do the same thing with this piece on this side. There's a piece in the middle and two little pieces to go right there. So I'm just going to repeat the same process until we have the wood deck in place. Alright, next order of business is we need to mix the stain. I showed you guys last time, we're just using this navy blue acrylic. This is the stuff you get at the art store. It's water-based paint, and yeah, just squish some of this out of here. It's pretty thick. I don't need a whole lot for what I'm doing, but it doesn't come the right color because what I had been doing before, we'll add a little bit of water. What I had been doing before was putting Weather Deck Blue on here, and to get it to match, the navy blue is not dark enough, so we've got black that we're going to add acrylic paint. See if we can get a little bit there. And basically I had Weather Deck Blue as the top color paint, and we wanted to get the deck stain to kind of match it. So that's all you do. Some water, the navy blue, the black, put just a little bit more blue, and it'll look good. Alright, this stuff's water based, so just get a brush, get some water on it, and just gonna put it down like so. Essentially you are painting the wood, but because this is water based, you are going to get the wood to absorb the color a little bit, which is why you end up with more of well, you get the real staining effect that you're looking for. So anyway, all we gotta do is put it on like this and let it dry. And you can modulate your intensity as it's thinned out to get the finished look that you're going for. Okay, that's it. Now all we gotta do is let it dry, and then we'll come back and hit it with a little bit of sandpaper to lighten it up. This area back here gets a lot of wear and tear from people walking, and so I just want a little bit thinner in the first place. Up here we've got a little bit less as we get towards the bridge, but we'll still hit that with some sandpaper anyway. So let's let this dry and then we'll come back. Alright, so we're all dried up here. We got our sandpaper, just some 320 grit, and I've used this before, and basically you're just going to make some very light passes in the direction of the wood planks, bow to stern, stern to bow, however you want to do it. Now if you go too far and you've taken too much off and you're not happy with how it looks, no big deal, it's wood. Just reapply your stain over it again and you'll be fine. It will look kind of light because you're going back down to the veneer, but that's alright. This is a little tunnel type of area, and so kind of going to place emphasis on right down the middle. I don't know how many folks will really see this when the thing's together, but we can see it right now, and that's all that matters, right? So go like that. So you get a little area there, and then same stuff back here. You don't have to do the whole thing. Just, you know, a little artistic license here. Everyone's going to be different. Alright, like that. The back, this area I actually think looks pretty good. Maybe we'll hit just a little bit. Right here there's a couple anti-aircraft gun positions, I believe, and there's a locker right there. And that's about it. There we go. So anyway, that's the finished piece. Looks worn nicely. Obviously more in the back here than in the front, but that's okay. The bridge, this is the bridge area we have, and there's not going to be like a whole bunch of trudging around up there. And even though it is susceptible to some sea spray, yeah, this should take care of it. So let's move on to some of these other assemblies. Alright, so we've got a couple of photo etch parts over here. They're actually the kit supplied PE. I went through the instructions and tried to see if there was any Pontos parts that we would want to use instead, but apparently not, and that's okay. These pieces are nice and heavy duty, and they have good texture, and they're gonna go where basically no one's gonna see them anyway. So we're just gonna get them mounted in place so that we can go ahead and get these other parts right here off to paint and ready to go. We'll just get everything installed here. Yeah, these end up in like an aisle with, I think, an overhang, so they're not going to pop out, but I do like them. As you can see in the film there, they're nice and thick and robust, and I do like that about kit supplied photo etch, that it's thicker. It's a little out of square. It's thicker. Thicker means to me that it's easier to work with, and what I'm doing off camera here is just dipping these things in the back of some super glue, cyanoacrylate, just to get them ready. So that's how they magically are sticking in place. And we're using our grease pencil. I had a link to them in the previous video. They basically make my life significantly easier with this stuff. So there, that's it. Those are in place, and these just get painted the light gray and then they get installed. So anyway, moving on. So now that we have this piece basically prepped and ready to go, to put the next pieces on that we need, there's a bunch of stuff that happens up here at the navigation bridge and the conning tower and everything, and that's going to require it to be attached to our superstructure. And all we're going to do for this, I'm going to grab some of my extra fine cement and we'll just prep these surface edges, hit them with some glue. It's easy peasy basically. And then we'll go ahead and we'll drop this piece into place, and minding to get it down as far as we can. And this is just because, like I said before, you got to get all parts to line up. The instructions want you to do this kind of in an odd order, I think. I would study things very carefully if I were you, before you put this all together, because you could end up like they wanted you to put these little pieces on up front here first, and I think they kind of hang out over the edge before you even get the whole thing assembled. So that's it. We'll just get it pressed down in place and glued up so we can start putting the stuff on that goes right here. Okay, another top-down view, because I want to show you this photo etch piece that Edward has. You're supposed to, I'm sorry, Pontos, I said Edward. Anyway, you're supposed to drop it in basically like that and glue it in place, and I wasn't sure, and this is one of those pieces that when we're all said and done you're not really going to see, but we see it now and I want to put in place. So it looks good here, it drops in and it sits flush, but I wasn't sure how that was going to affect all the other parts, and that's something you do have to take into consideration. So here's part of the navigation conning tower that does have holes in the front for it to anchor into and push it in place, and you can't see it here, but it is sitting on top of the brass, and I just want to make sure, looking around the edges here, that it will sit into place correctly. Then we have our little piece that we worked on earlier. It's got anchor points. There's these little posts, so that drops in. And let's see here, I think if I go like this, you can see, we'll zoom in carefully, there's a little gap right there in between the two. So this could come back a little bit, but if it comes back, it is going to sit up on top of the wood deck, but that's okay for right now. Then we have these pieces that we prepped earlier. I'm going to drop them in place just like so, and we want to make sure that they sit nice and flush and no issues there. So this looks good, and again, all of this is dry fitted into place, taking into consideration where would our brass photo etch go. Now here I'm running into my first problem. This looks like it's shifted over and it's covering up that anchor point right there. So I think if that's going to be the case, how do we get this? We'll pop this off. This piece actually fits really snug. So if we come back with it, if we put both of these pieces in, then put this piece in, so then it will sit like so, and then we gotta grab our other one. So now that slot's still available, put in right here, so like that. So there, it will work, but it's gotta sit just like so, otherwise we're gonna have issues. So I wanted to do this because I'd like to glue this down in place and then obviously paint it. Then we have these pieces. These are optional pieces. They'll sit like this, but I actually really like them, and I think that they need to go into place also. It just cleans up this deck area here that's got funny seams and, you know, little things going on here. I'd rather get that in place. So like I said, we'll dry fit and use this as a template to glue in the brass pieces, and then we'll get it painted up. All right, there's the photo etch in place. I'm gonna go ahead and mask around it, and now that it's glue set up, and paint it the deck blue color here. Over here though, so these parts, this is part of the, goes in below the bridge basically, right here. See if I could set it in place. So it goes in like that, and now in several pictures I have, these do have windows in them, and in several pictures they're open and several pictures are closed. Well, the back side of this, as you can see, it's pretty thick plastic, but I would like to put window in here, even though it's going to end up being recessed. You can see kind of the thicker wall right there, and it won't be flush. In the past I used the transparencies for, some of you will remember this, the overhead projectors. That works really well. I couldn't find where I had my stash of that. What I did find, I bought this piece of PVC clear, basically acrylic, that I'm going to use as set. It's a little bit thicker than I'd like, but what we'll do is get it cut out and we will glue it into the back here, and that way there will be a little bit of a window so that when you look through there, there'll be glass. And when we do the next section up top for the bridge, we're actually using photo etch for that from Pontos, and this will work out the way it's supposed to. So we'll come back to that. I'm just going to mask and paint this real quick. Alright, so we can see what's going on here. Basically, I want to put a piece of glass in the back here. We're going to use this PVC, and I found, fortunately, this strip of styrene that if I lay, and there's a groove in there, it in place, just like so, it perfectly fits in the back, covering the windows. So we're going to use this as our width gauge to mark and cut out the plastic PVC here, and you can see it in the glare. I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit here for you guys. But yeah, we're just going to mark our edge here a little bit. Get a little bit of a scratch going, like so, and then get a ruler in place, get it parallel to the edge, and we're just going to score this a few times with the knife. Alright, there's more than enough there. So there's our piece. And then what we need to do is we'll clean up the edge, but we want it to sit, oh yeah, it's a little bit too wide still. We want it to sit right in here, like so. And I'll zoom in just a little bit more. Alright, just so you can see, there is that little edge right there, this lip, which is really nice. And the idea is that this will sit right on there flush, and we'll glue it in, and then we'll clean up the top there, and then there you'll have glass on that side, which I think is nice. We're going to use clear window cement glue for this. So, and we're going to do two pieces, I think, because we have this angle here, this 90-degree angle, and I'm just going to butt it into the corner right there. So I'll clean this up and get exactly the right size so we could glue it together next. Alright, here's our piece. I prepped the edge a little bit. I don't know if you can see, I scraped off the paint so that the glue can adhere. We're just going to use the Tester's clear window glue like I used for all the portholes, and we're just going to take this, get a little dab along here, And it'll set up and dry clear as well. Just like that, just a little bit, and then we're going to take our wax pencil, our glass, and drop it right into place. Like so. That's it. That's what it looks like from the back. And as you can see, there's your window from the other side. And we got to cut out a little piece and do it on the front too. And then same with this is the starboard side. We'll get the port side knocked out, and then we'll get this installed. That's all we got to do. Alright, so this is all painted up, and like our pieces that we painted before, you can see a little photo etch that need to get installed. We could go ahead and throw in. Drop it into place. Like so. Then we've got this piece actually a little bit more complicated. We got these tabs here that look like they may have had better days. We'll let that set up, and then we got to put these pieces in place. Okay, so there's the two pieces installed up in the front. They look nice. And then we went ahead and got some of this photo etch that you could see down here installed. I'm just going to point it out. It looks nice, you know, before we get it all painted up and everything here, so that you could see just those edge details. Then what we have in the instructions, interestingly enough, I got to figure this out. It looks like there's a piece of photo etch that goes right here, and then possibly in front of it on both sides like a door. And that's in the Pontos set, so that doesn't say anything about it in the kit instructions. So we're gonna have to sort that out, and then we'll get this stuff all painted up next. Alright, I figured it out. It's basically little hatch doors that go in place right there. These are just set in right now. I went ahead and opened them, and I'll get them painted and glued up. This way you could see through the door into the other side, and through the windows out the door to this side. So I think that's neat. But that's what they look like, roughed in place. And then there's this little brass wall that goes basically right here in front of it, according to Pontos, that I'm going to throw together as well. And then we'll get those painted up and glued in position, I guess. Kind of a neat little detail there. Alright, moving along. Alright, let's wrap this segment up. All of the photo etch has been painted that you saw up on the top earlier. We went ahead and got the hatch doors installed, the little wall with the photo etch. I think it looks pretty dang good. Then see, we got our windows in the front here, and you'll be able to see through, get that focus, through there to that wall in the back through the glass. So I think that was worth doing. It's just a neat little effect. We'll clean it all up some more later. And we've got our photo etch metal and everything in the front installed on the plates in. So now what's left to do really, well, there's a lot left to do really. But I want to start down on the deck right here, putting in the railing. See, we got the railing in down here. And we can start moving our way across to the back. This section's already done in the previous video, so yeah, we'll start working on that on the next one. But anyway, it's kind of crazy because I did a lot of work. You guys all saw it, and that's really all there is to show for it. But I think it looks good, and that'll take care of it for now. Hope you're all doing well, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can with more next time.